The second general principle of the means of mortification proposed to confirmation. The Spirit the only author of this work. Vanity of popish mortification discovered. Many means of it used by them not appointed of God. Those appointed by him abused. The mistakes of others in this business. The Spirit is promised believers for this work, Ezekiel 11:19, 36:26. All that we receive from Christ is by the Spirit. How the Spirit mortifies sin, Galatians 5:19-23. The several ways of his operation to this end proposed. How his work and our duty. The next principle relates to the great sovereign cause of the mortification treated of, which, in the words laid for the foundation of this discourse, is said to be the Spirit, that is, the Holy Ghost, as was evinced. 2. He only is sufficient for this work. All ways and means without him are as a thing of naught, and he is the great efficient of it. He works in us as he pleases. 1. In vain do men seek other remedies. They shall not be healed by them. What several ways have been prescribed for this, to have sin mortified, is known. The greatest part of popish religion, of that which looks most like religion in their profession, consists in mistaken ways and means of mortification. This is the pretense of their rough garments, whereby they deceive. Their vows, orders, fastings, penances, are all built on this ground. They are all for the mortifying of sin. Their preachings, sermons, and books of devotion all look this way. Hence, those who interpret the locusts that came out of the bottomless pit, Revelation 9:3, to be the friars of the Romish church, who are said to torment men so that they should seek death and not find it, verse 6, think that they did it by their stinging sermons, whereby they convinced them of sin, but being not able to discover the remedy for the healing and mortifying of it, they kept them in such perpetual anguish and terror, and such trouble in their consciences, that they desired to die. This, I say, is the substance and glory of their religion. But what with their laboring to mortify dead creatures, ignorant of the nature and the end of the work, what with the poison they mixed with it, and their persuasion of its merit, yea, supererogation, as they style their unnecessary merit, with a proud, barbarous title, their glory is their shame, but of them and their mortification more afterward, chapter 7. That the ways and means to be used for the mortification of sin invented by them are still insisted on and prescribed, for the same end, by some who should have more light and knowledge of the gospel is known. Such directions to this purpose have of late been given by some, and are greedily catched at by others professing themselves Protestants, as might have become popish devotionists 300 or 400 years ago. Such outside endeavors, such bodily exercises, such self-performances, such merely legal duties, without the least mention of Christ or his Spirit, are varnished over with swelling words of vanity, for the only means and expedients for the mortification of sin, as discover a deep-rooted unacquaintedness with the power of God and mystery of the gospel. The consideration hereof was one motive to the publishing of this plain discourse. Now, the reasons why the papist can never, with all their endeavours, truly mortify any one sin amongst others are, 1. Because many of the ways and means they use and insist upon for this end were never appointed of God for that purpose. Now, there is nothing in religion that hath any efficacy for compassing an end, but it hath it from God's appointment of it to that purpose. Such as these are their rough garments, their vows, penances, disciplines, their course of monastical life, and the like. Concerning all which God will say, Who hath required these things at your hand? And, In vain do ye worship me, teaching for doctrines the traditions of men. Of the same nature are sundry self-vexations insisted on by others. 2. Because those things that are appointed of God as means are not used by them in their due place and order, such as are praying, fasting, watching, meditation, and the like. These have their use in the business in hand, but whereas they are all to be looked on as streams, they look on them as the fountain. whereas they effect and accomplish the end as means only, subordinate to the Spirit and faith, they look on them to do it by virtue of the work wrought. If they fast so much, and pray so much, and keep their hours and times, the work is done. As the apostle says of some in another case, they are always learning, never coming to the knowledge of the truth. So they are always mortifying, but never come to any sound mortification. In a word, they have sundry means to mortify the natural man, as to the natural life here we lead, none to mortify lust or corruption. This is the general mistake of men ignorant of the gospel about this thing, and it lies at the bottom of very much of that superstition and will worship that hath been brought into the world. What horrible self-macerations were practiced by some of the ancient authors of monastical devotion! What violence did they offer to nature! What extremity of sufferings did they put themselves upon! Search their ways and principles to the bottom, and you will find that it had no other root but this mistake, namely, that attempting rigid mortification, they fell upon the natural man instead of the corrupt old man, upon the body wherein we live instead of the body of death. Neither will the natural popery that is in others do it. Men are galled with the guilt of a sin that hath prevailed over them. They instantly promise to themselves and God that they will do so no more. They watch over themselves and pray for a season, until the heat waxes cold and the sense of sin is worn off. And so mortification goes also, and sin returns to its former dominion. Duties are excellent food for a healthy soul. They are no physic for a sick soul. He that turns his meat into medicine must expect no great operation. Spiritually sick men cannot sweat out their distemper with working. But this is the way of men who deceive their own souls, as we shall see afterwards. That none of these ways are sufficient is evident from the nature of the work itself that is to be done. It is a work that requires so many concurrent actings in it as no self-endeavor can reach unto, and is of that kind that an almighty energy is necessary for its accomplishment, as shall be afterwards manifested.